Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the Research Capacity Development Unit at the University of Johannesburg, the Writing and Effective Abstract Introduction and Literature Review Workshop. My name is Kweketso Pila, and I will be your moderator today. Firstly, I would like to notify you that this session is being recorded. And let me start off by thanking our attendees for taking your time to join us today. And I would also like to thank our presenter, Dr. Zachariah Grant, for his effort with preparing and giving this presentation. So before I officially introduce Dr. Grant to you, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules and some important information. So for the housekeeping rules, if you do have questions during the presentation, please raise your hand if you would like to speak, or you can type your question in the chat box. I will then indicate to the presenter to address the question. And as I've already mentioned, that the session is being recorded and the presentation slides will be requested from the presenter, and both the presentation slides and the recording will be uploaded on our Moodle communities by the end of the week. And also a feedback survey will be sent out during the session on the chat box. Please may we request that you complete the feedback survey for us to gain some insight on whether this workshop was successful and how we can improve in the future. And this will also be used for the facilitators and RCD reporting. Also, this ensures that you get the certificate of attendance. And also just a reminder that we have launched our research capacity development management system, otherwise known as the RCDMS. And we urge those who have not yet registered to please do so. And if you need assistance, you're experiencing challenges and you need assistance with the registration, please send us an email on rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za. Alternatively, one of our colleagues, Mr. Lawrence Asani, is currently at the library today, and he is assisting those who are having challenges with registering. So if you are on campus and you need assistance, you can kindly go to the library and meet Mr. Lawrence Asani, and then he will help with the registrations. Without further ado, I will then introduce our presenter, Dr. Zachariah Grant, to you by reading out his bio. So Dr. Zachariah Grant is a monitoring and evaluation expert with 18 years of experience in public health programs, climate change adaptation, gender analysis, and policy research. He has worked with international NGOs, UN agencies, government bodies, academia, focusing on strengthening evaluation systems and evidence-based decision making. He holds a PhD in public administration, specializing in global health partnerships impact on M&E systems, and has completed further training in higher education teaching and digital health from Harvard University Online. Currently, Dr. Grant lead research on anticipatory action planning and gender analysis and disaster risk reduction in various countries in Africa. His research interest includes climate change governance, One Health, digital health technologies. His expertise in evaluation research and policy analysis positions him as a key contributor to advancing monitoring and evaluation knowledge in public health and climate resilience. He also sits in a board for a prominent NGOs involved in critical mineral resource governance in Africa. Without further ado, I will then hand over to Dr. Zachariah. If I may ask, Dr. Zachariah, would you like to take the questions during the presentation, or would you rather finish the presentation and take the questions at the end?
Okay, thank you so much. I noticed that the three presentations could be a bit long. So maybe taking questions at the end would be fine. But if there are burning ones, I think we can address them as we go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So participants and colleagues, I would like to just urge you to place your comments on the comment section, and if you'd like to speak and ask a question to Dr. Grant, you can do so at the end of the presentation. And if it's a burning question, you can just raise your hand and I will indicate to the presenter that to address your question. So over to you, Dr. Zakaria. I will share the presentation from my side. Just a moment while I do that.
Thank you. All right. Maybe just out of interest, the students are also going to introduce themselves.
Stop sharing. Please let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, I can see it now. Thank you so much. Good. Maybe to just have an appreciation of the profile of the students, the participants, that.
Sorry. Oh,
Hello, can
sorry,
you
I
hear
was
me?
muted. Yes, Dr. Grant, I just stopped sharing for a few minutes and then I will allow the participants' mic so that everyone can just unmute themselves and speak, and then I will share again.
Great, thank you.
Okay, colleagues, so all your mics are enabled, so you can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Silemo. I'm doing my first year in PhD in political science. Yeah, thank
you. Morning, everyone. My name is Tumelo Mokoena. I'm doing my second year in my master's in strategic communications. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Asuma Raila, and I'm currently doing my first year of LLD in Level.
Next, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Josante, doing my master's second year in strategic communication.
Good morning. I'm Lawrence Mubenga. I'm doing my master's in jewelry design and manufacturing.
Dumisan or Francis?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis Akwesimenu, PhD student in education, second year.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Timsan Manakwane, PhD student in education.
Hello, my name is Forum Shais, PhD student, second year in engineering management. Thanks.
Michael, if you are close to your mic. Or Caroline. Hello.
I think Michael has placed a comment on the chat, and he says, Michael
okay.
Otieno, first year PhD in sociology.
Okay.
And we also have Soforo Mutlalisi, PhD student in engineering management, on the comment section. And also Dumisani has already introduced himself.
That's great. So it looks like all of us have managed to introduce ourselves, huh? Is that so? All right. With your permission, Chair, maybe I can proceed to make my presentation.
Yes, please.
Great. Like what you saw on the profile there, I am fairly a new doctoral research fellow with UJ. I just joined this April, and I'm yet to be on campus. And I would like to thank the RCD team for placing confidence in me to make this presentation today. Maybe I wanted to start off with the literature review first. If you can switch to the literature review, then we do the how to write an introduction, then we finalize the conversations with how to write an effective abstract. So colleagues, thank you so much for taking your time. We'll try to make this as much as possible a conversation so that it doesn't become a monologue from my side. Yeah, so like I said, I'll be joining you. Some of you will be meeting there and we'll be having further conversations on various topics as the year progresses. On this presentation, I want to acknowledge Dr. Monyera, who prepared this presentation. And my duty today is to just make the presentation. Let's move on to the next slide. We want to see the outline of the presentation. So from my experience, I've noticed that with research at postdoctoral level, the most important thing is to do a thorough search before you start any writing. My professor used to say you need to read around 15 to 20 articles before you start conceptualizing any serious topic or start writing. So these are some of the nuggets that we'll be sharing as we proceed. In terms of our presentation outline, I will talk about understanding critical literature review, what are the key strategies, what are the key analytic frameworks, how do we organize our literature effectively. We'll also look at tools and techniques for efficient reading. Then we'll also look at common pitfalls and how do we avoid them. Then we have some concluding reflections, and then we open the session to questions. From there, we'll move on to another presentation, which is going to focus on how to write an effective introduction. Next slide. Next slide, please. Good. I'm assuming that everyone is hearing me loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Slide,
maybe you can get some thumbs up from the participants also, just to confirm from their side.
Yeah, I can see that. That's great. Let me see the previous slide, please. All right. So why does it matter to do a literature review? Here, with literature review, we are trying to demonstrate our knowledge and understanding of what is existing out there on a specific topic. I notice we have people from communication, engineering, education. It is important that we demonstrate our understanding or knowledge of our specific issues, current issues within our specific domains or areas of specialization within that context. And in this case, we are including critical evaluation of materials that are currently under discussion. This is more like people who are on a table, who are discussing issues that are currently happening within our areas of specialization. So with critical literature review, we are asking how do we add value to that conversation that is happening on the table? And what are the two main objectives for literature review? Number one, we are trying to do a content covering on existing literature, theories and evidence. Number two, we are also doing our own critical evaluation and discussion of the content. So these are the two main objectives. And usually, this forms a part of a dissertation, which most of you are pursuing. It could be a research project for those who are involved in perhaps community-related projects, or it could be a long essay. And in some cases, this can be done or assessed as a standalone piece of research. So just to recap, content covering on existing literature, theories and evidence, and also as part of critical evaluation and the discussion of the content. Next slide. Next slide. Why does it matter? We may ask. So, with literature review, your task is to build an argument at postdoctoral level or at postgraduate level. Our literature review is designed to build an argument, not just a library. This is according to Rudestam at Newton 1992. We are also looking at knowledge accumulation as an endeavor. So when you want to build knowledge around your subject before you start writing, you have to do a literature search, a thorough literature evaluation or review. This is the kind of reading which is combined with critical analysis. We are not just reading the way we do newspapers or perhaps listen to news. And here, it helps us to refine a topic and frame research questions. So as you are doing your literature search, you are already framing potential research questions around the subject that you are reading. It also helps you to establish your familiarity with and understanding of current research in particular fields before carrying out new investigations. So before you start thinking of carrying out a new investigation, which most of you are doing, you have to understand the current discourses or discussions that are on the table. So this is where our literature review becomes important. We don't want a situation where we end up perhaps picking a subject that is already exhausted, and perhaps it will take, your time when perhaps your proposal is not accepted or is sent back to you for further improvement. Next slide. All right. Let's continue with the purpose. So according to Parr et al. 2015, literature review helps us to identify what has been written. I've already alluded to that. It also helps to determine the extent to which specific research areas reveals any interpretable trends or patterns. It also helps us to aggregate empirical findings from primary data sources, also generating new frameworks and theories. Some of your researches may be focused on developing new frameworks and the theories, which is the basis, especially at PhD level, and also identifying topics or questions requiring further investigation. So with the literature review, you are essentially setting yourself to investigate gaps that exist within your area of interest. So whatever reading that you are doing, bear in mind or at the back of your mind that you need to identify research gaps. What is it that the scholars or the authors are not talking in their reviews, which becomes an area of interest to you? So whenever you are reading an article, you need to ask the question, what is it that they are not talking about? Next slide. Also, literature review represents powerful information sources for practitioners who are looking for current evidence. I've alluded that. And with high quality reviews, particularly those which are frequently cited. As a researcher, you need to focus on those kind of papers. So we are not just reading any literature that is out there. We have to focus on peer-reviewed, high impact, as they say. And reading the review also enables you as a researcher to have an overview or detailed knowledge of the area in question, as well as references to the most useful primary sources. These are some of the issues that I've already alluded to. We can move on to next slide. Good, just a brief focus on good practice with regards to literature review. It helps you to summarize and analyze previous research and theories. It also helps you as a postgraduate researcher to identify areas of controversy and contested claims. This is quite important and very, very interesting. What are the controversies? What are the contested claims within your area of interest? This will help you to join the conversations and perhaps clarify some of those controversies or contested claims as part of your niche that you have identified within your topic. It also helps or strengthen theoretical and methodological foundations and enhances the development of arguments and the discussions. Once you get into this realm, you begin to see or to hear your voice joining others on the table, bringing new or novel perspectives to the conversations that are under discussions. So this is a very important perspective, usually transitioning from your typical honors level of analysis to that level. Sometimes people struggle to engage maybe into a deeper kind of conversations. And to address that, you really need to have read quite a number of articles with different writing styles and different approaches in terms of how to approach the same subject. You will notice that the same subject, when discussed, for example, at honors level, when you go to master's or a PhD level, you have to engage, at a deeper level with regards to how you attack the subject, how you package the arguments, and how you clarify controversies or contested claims. At honors level, sometimes we are just retelling what other scholars have said without really putting much emphasis in terms of either providing a different perspective or perhaps adding a new dimension to the same angle that someone has already presented. So this can only happen when you have done enough reading. Without reading enough literature, it's difficult to start even thinking of start writing. So reading becomes our key success factor. If you do your thorough reading in year one, you are almost guaranteed that your second and third years will be as smooth as you can imagine. Next slide. All right, so with literature review, critical in this case is more than just summarizing. We are providing an analysis which is breaking down complex ideas to simplify so that a layman out there will understand what you are talking about. You are identifying key arguments, you are examining relationships between concepts. You are also synthesizing, which in this case, you are integrating different sources. You are identifying patterns. You are forming new insights and also connecting ideas. Then you are also critiquing, which is evaluating your SWOT analysis. You are looking at implications. You are positioning your self-argument within the scholarly debate, like I alluded earlier, that you are like someone joining a table, people on the table discussing a particular subject which is of interest to you. So the question is, what critical insights are you bringing on the table? So you must bring views that your colleague will say, oh, I didn't think about this. This is an interesting angle that you are bringing. If you get such kind of reactions, then it means you are venturing into the world of critical thinking. Next slide. So critical thinking is like you are processing oranges into some kind of a juicer, which is nice to drink. Next slide. There we are processing. Let's go. Great. This is the final product, which I hope will be very nice to whoever will be enjoying. Next slide. Good. We are also, like I said, identifying gaps, contradictions, and debates. I think I've already highlighted this. Just highlighting that with gaps, we are recognizing to say what is missing in the existing board of literature, the current one. We are also looking at contradictions where we are highlighting inconsistencies on conflicting findings. That could be your research niche. Then it debates, what are people saying? So you are mapping out the disagreements and the positions that people are taking regarding the same subject that you are interested in. Next slide. Let's focus on the types of literature reviews. It could be, reviewing a section in a journal paper or a chapter in a thesis. In this case, you are synthesizing the extant literature, and usually you are identifying the gaps in knowledge that the empirical study addresses. So when you look at a book chapter or an article, you are essentially synthesizing and identifying gaps of knowledge. That's the first part. And perhaps maybe borrowing from Hart 1999 and Levy and Ellis, this type of literature provides the theoretical perspective. This is a very important consideration if you want to conceptualize your research effectively. The theoretical perspective will always be something that you must consider to say, whatever you're thinking, what is the theoretical framework under which your ideas are framed? What is the foundation of your study? You are also looking at definitions of concepts, which forms part of your theoretical framework. You are setting boundaries to say, what I am going to discuss here is set within these theoretical boundaries. I notice we have people from law, from communication, education, engineering. If you look at those fields of study, they have different theories. The same problem, when attacked from different perspectives, they are based on different theoretical frameworks or perspectives. If you take a lawyer or an accountant, they always give things according to their worldviews, which means they are biased towards the theoretical framework that they read or that they are taught in their field of specialization. It also helps to substantiate the presence of the research problem and also justify the research as one that contributes something new. At postgraduate level, we are always looking for something new. From whatever you are reading, the question is, what is new? Can you validate your methods, your approaches for that proposed study to bring us something new, just like the juice that we saw there? It's a new product out of a process. Then it also covers the main aspects of themes of the study. So this is what you find when you do a review of journal papers or a chapter thesis. Next slide. Okay. Then a standalone literature review. This is looking at original and valuable work of research in and of itself. And this provides a base for researchers' own work. Sometimes you want to move into the uncharted waters of coming up perhaps with a revolutionary idea or a new idea. You can rely on standalone literature, which perhaps, does not have a lot of contributions from out there. And this type of literature review creates a solid starting point for all with interest in a particular area or topic. So in areas like engineering, someone may come up with something that is completely new, but that new comes through reading other people's work, how they conceptualize new ideas, So in a way, some kind of a standalone literature review, which is also known as a review article, where a journal-length paper with an overarching purpose to synthesize the literature in a field is done. And here you are not collecting or analyzing any primary data. So it's just helping you to conceptualize ideas based on papers that perhaps do not have a lot of debates out there. Next slide. Good. So another advantage of doing a critical literature review, you are identifying narrative reviews. This is just providing some kind of a narration, or it could be descriptive. Perhaps for those in social sciences, where you are looking at qualitative aspects, giving us more insights about particular phenomena. It could be scoping reviews, where you are looking at the scope of various scholar reviews, or you are simply doing a systematic aggregation, or you are doing critical reviews, perhaps influenced by methods such as the critical discourse analysis. For those who are in communication, you may understand what I'm talking about. Next slide. Then in terms of choosing what to read now, we have this schematic flowchart which will help us to choose an article to read. So one of the pitfalls that we face is reading everything. I remember when I started in my first year PhD, I was reading everything until my professor asked me for my list of references. And there were, lots of unnecessary, books and articles. So you literally took that and said, this is not necessary. Like crossing over. Say you need to focus on articles that are current, that are, addressing the key debates around the subject that you are interested in. So the question is, what are you looking for? It could be an idea for research, where you are looking at original research articles. It could be randomized controlled trials or controlled clinical trials. They could be experimental studies, cohort studies, or case control studies. Then it could be a diagnosis, like a doctor who is trying to diagnose a problem so that you can provide the therapy. Or it could be a prognosis, where you are doing reviews. You want to check proceedings for those who are in legal practice, for example, or in medical. You could look at textbooks. You could look at case series or case reports. for diagnosis and prognosis. Then you could also do a topic overview or updates. Here we are looking at the narrative reviews. You are looking at systematic reviews. You are also doing meta-analysis. So with systematic reviews, you are trying to come up with specific themes. With meta-analysis, you are looking at various different types of existing articles that you are trying to bring together to make a coherent story about the discussion that are happening or the gaps that are existing. Next slide. Next slide. Good. So with existing literature, all right. I think you skipped one slide, but it's fine. So looking at now organizing your scientific articles or your thesis topics. This is a generic guide, but perhaps your faculties will provide specific structure. Here with social sciences, usually it's the title where you are looking at the topic and information about the authors. The abstract, we'll talk more about that. Introduction, we'll talk more about that. The methods, results, discussion, then reference and bibliography. So this is just a generic structure of what an article or a thesis looks like. Next slide. Good. So this one also provides some kind of a schematic visual presentation of how you can go around searching for relevant literature for your specific field. So the first question that you must ask yourself when you pick an article is the title related to the topic that I am looking for? Does it have the keywords which I have in mind? So look at the keywords that are usually at the bottom of the article on the first page to tell you whether you are interested. If it's not, you need to leave it. You also read the abstract. You look at the summary. You look at the conclusions. It will already tell you whether the article speaks to your issues or not. Look at whether the aims and objectives are clear. Is the hypothesis defined well? Are the conclusions precise? And are all the above issues like the hypothesis, the objective, the summary conclusions useful and relevant to your topic? If it's yes, you read the entire article. So because you don't have a lot of time, this is one practical way of helping you to manage your time so that you don't spend a lot of time reading articles that may not speak to your subject. So this is one way of eliminating the articles that may not contribute to your subject and identifying those that contribute to your subject. Next slide. Then in terms of strategies for critical literature review, here we are saying we need to read with a purpose. We define why you are reading the paper, and we ask the key questions: what problem is being addressed? What are the key findings? How does this connect to my research? So this is where it is very critical to say, yes, these are the problems that are being addressed. Yes, these are the key findings. But the question is, how does it connect to my own area of interest? If you can affirmatively answer to those questions, then you can go ahead and do a critical or thorough evaluation or assessment of the article. Next slide. So we also have this acronym which helps us to do a critical analysis. And in this case, it's a framework. This is where the importance of frameworks comes into play with regards to our critical literature review. So by CREP, we mean, is it current? So for current debates, we expect you to focus on articles that are fairly recent. With technology today, maybe a 5-year-old paper may be old in some fields of study. Perhaps you know better. Then is it relevant? Is it authoritative? Who published the paper? Because we don't want a situation where you refer on maybe it's current, but perhaps it's from a predatory journal, which is not authoritative. Accuracy. Is it resonating with the generally accepted, findings about a particular subject? Then purpose. Is it something that contributes to the current debates or current issues that we are seeking to address? So this is the kind of framework that will help us to remember how to pick appropriate, articles for our work. Next slide. Next slide. Then what questions do you ask when you are doing a critical reading? What are the main claims or arguments? I've already alluded to that. What evidence is provided to support the claims? So you must have evidence for any claim that you make. What is the evidence? Very important. What assumptions underpin the research? Here we are identifying our own biases and assumptions. And in this case, biases does not necessarily mean negative. It's just your orientation. As long as you can justify and provide a scholarly and organized argument to justify your biases. What are the study's limitations? So you need to acknowledge that sometimes it's just your positioning as a scholar. You need to acknowledge that as someone who is positioned within this environment, perhaps my biases, perhaps, or the sample size or the scope or even the methodology can actually contribute to issues. But the most important thing is, are you situating the study in the broader literature? Like I said, are you joining others on the table to contribute something meaningful in terms of the current discourses? In other words, we are saying, how does your study or your perspective contribute to the field? Next slide. How do we organize our literature? So the first is looking at thematic approach, where you are organizing your studies according to themes. This is particularly applicable for those in social sciences, where it helps identify patterns, debates, and knowledge gaps. So whatever paper that you are reading, you are asking the question, what key themes are recurring in the articles that you are reading? What are the key debates or knowledge gaps? Then theoretical approach. Here we are looking at group studies based on the theoretical framework they use. For those, for example, in communication, you may look at theories or approaches such as critical discourse analysis. And the question that you need to check is it useful in understanding how different perspectives shape your research? So the theory in this case becomes the common denominator that you are looking for from the articles that you are reading. Then methodological approach, which methods were used in terms of the research design, in terms of how the data is collected, in terms of the analytic techniques. So the important question that you need to ask is it useful for comparing findings based on the methods that have been used? So you're looking at all those articles based on the methods that have been used to answer that critical question. So in short, we are saying by going through these different approaches, you are mapping the concept. You are visualizing the connections between the sources. Next slide. Then what are the tools? Thank God, with technology, the way we do our work is becoming increasingly faster, but there are also dangers to academic integrity that must also be safeguarded in view of things like artificial intelligence. But as scholars, we are supposed to move with time, of course, with the integrity. So we have reference management softwares, which I would want to encourage researchers to master in your year one. It is important to master how these reference management softwares are ethically used within the academic environment. So we have things like EndNote, it could be Mendeley or Zotero, which helps you to organize and cite sources. Spend some time familiarizing yourself with this. You don't need to go the manual route to organize your literature references. You know, you need to do citing as you write rather than to do it manually. We are not assessed, you know, based on our efficient, you know, manual way of doing things. So EndNote, Mendeley, and Zotero will help you to just, you know, cite automatically as you go. Then we also have Elicity, which is a very fantastic software, which helps you to summarize papers according to your topic. If you just type your idea there, it will give you sources that have discussed, you know, the subject. It will tell you the method that were used. It will give you key points, key findings, you know, very useful software. Then we also have the Research Rabbit, which maps related articles. So your articles that are linked to your subject will just be pulled out. Then, of course, ChatGPT, which is the most popular, which can help you to extract key points. So with the softwares like ChatGPT, this is not replacing our our critical thinking. We are supposed to use it perhaps to generate ideas, but the best that you can do is to join ChatGPT in the ideas that it is generating. Otherwise, if you allow it to generate everything for you, that is academic fraud, and you are not doing a disservice to UJ or to anyone. Of course, you'll be punished, but you are doing a big disservice to yourself because you graduate without knowing your subject. So you will not want to expose yourself or expose your university for academic fraud. I saw a recent article which was talking about this problem within the South African context, which we think we need to address as a matter of urgency. Next slide. So there are many. We are just giving you some to help you think around, but this is not an exhaustive list. Then what mistakes do we do when we are reading literature? Passive reading. You are not engaged critically. You are simply summarizing studies without questioning them. At postdoctoral or postgraduate level, your approach is to start from the point that what is it this scholar not saying, rather than regurgitating what the scholar has said. So our duty is to identifying gaps. We need to engage critically. What is it that you are not saying? What is it that you are not addressing, perhaps using the method that you are using? Then information overload. This is another problem. Sometimes an unintended effect of reading too much. But like I said, reading is important. But you also need a skill on how to organize your information by just picking the key ones, not everything. You also need to attempt to cover. You are attempting to cover every paper instead of focusing on the relevant literature. So we've already covered on how you eliminate some of the irrelevant papers to avoid this problem. Lack of organization. You don't have a structured approach. In academia, it's not the intelligent who graduate. It's those who are organized, who are resilient, who approach things from a structured. They write things down. When they come up close with an idea, whether you are sleeping and an idea pops up, you wake up, you write down in your diary or wherever you write your things. But if you do your things in a scattered way, it will be difficult to synthesize your ideas. So these are some of the pitfalls. Next slide. Next slide. Good. Then in terms of my concluding reflections, I would encourage you to be very strategic. In this case, I'm saying, let's read with a purpose. How do you do that? You focus on key studies and not everything. Use abstracts and keywords to filter relevant literature. Be critical. Engage beyond summarizing. Ask hard questions about claims, about evidence, about gaps. Compare and contrast different perspectives. Be organized, and thank God of the new tools. We can organize our libraries, we can organize our ideas, we can organize our themes, or our theories, or our methodologies. You also need to use a literature matrix or a concept map or reference management. This is where your end notes your Zotero and Mendeley comes in. With these applications, you can actually categorize your articles according to themes within that library, so that if you want to refer or update yourself on a particular subject, instead of just going into the whole library in EndNote, you can just go to a specific list of articles within the library. Next slide. Next slide. So those are some of the references. You can check them out and help you to understand things that I may not have said well in this 1 hour period. Of course, I did not say everything, so the list can help you to read from the source for yourself. Great. Next slide, I think it's questions and reflections. Good, now we can discuss. Or we can clarify issues if there are things that are not clear from your end.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Any
Grant,
questions?
for that detailed presentation. I'll open the floor for questions. Those who would like to engage Dr. Grant in a discussion, you are more than welcome to do so. Please raise, you may unmute yourself actually, so your mics are enabled, or you may put the comment or question on the chat box. I will then raise it up to Dr. Grant to respond to that. Any issues that we're experiencing or any questions regarding literature review and critical literature review strategies? Okay, it doesn't look like we have questions, but from my side, Dr. Grant, I think this presentation was very detailed and it gave us some ideas and on how to go about engaging in critical literature review. And as I was as in the beginning of the presentation, I had like a question in mind that as a beginner in research, how do you go about actually unpacking an article? But that question was actually responded to in your presentation as you went along with the presentation. I think I got my answer as to which are the parts that you need to focus on when you are doing your literature review, when you are actually unpacking an article, because sometimes you're overwhelmed. There's so many articles to read, and it's almost impossible to read all the articles from start to finish. So which part do you actually focus on for you to get an idea and analyze the problem? Or what is being addressed in that particular article, but that question was responded to. And yeah, literature review is a critical part of being an academic. So you cannot say you're engaging in research without having a thorough literature review. And we need to just have like strategies that you use that works for you. Storing articles, like you've mentioned. So those who don't know, and I think everybody now knows EndNote. And if not, the library has so many sessions on EndNote, as Dr. Grant has mentioned, that you can actually store your articles thematically. So if you don't have EndNote as yet, or you have no idea of what it is, then the library is hosting many workshops on EndNote, and we can also, I think, have a consultation with the librarians that will help you to install and maybe show you how to use EndNote, which is much more effective to work with it. I see there's a comment also from Asamahle. He says, no need for clarity on my side. But this was such an informative session for me, as it reminded me of some things that I have forgotten or not paying more attention to. Definitely. Thank you for that, Asamahle. And we have a comment again from Sibongi Seni, and he says, excellent presentation indeed. And during my master's, I had a challenge on critical analysis, and I was told that my word was just descriptive. Thank you to this much. Thank you so much. This presentation has empowered me. Thank you. So we thank you, Dr. Grant, for unpacking how we can go about engaging in literature review. And we have the last comment again from Caroline to say, thank you, Dr. Grant, for this presentation. May I ask how you would then break down your abstract or introduction to open the floor for the critical analysis? That's a question from Caroline.
All right, thank you so much, Carol. I think this question will be answered in the next 2 sessions. So yeah, I will answer it in view of our time in the next 2 presentations. If it's not clear, we'll then take it up from there, Carol. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So which presentation should I display next?
Good, let's go to the introduction first. I want to sign off with the abstract.
Okay.
For a reason. Yeah.
Just a moment.
No problem.
Please let me know if it's showing.
Yes.
Okay,
On my
I'll
end,
put it on
yes.
present.
Good.
Okay, let me put it in presentation mode.
Presentation mode, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So now I'm trying to do this presentation in a methodological manner. The reason why I started with literature review is because we don't encourage you to start writing before you have read enough. Now that we assume that you have read enough, we are moving on to discuss how we can write an effective introduction. So maybe to just give in some kind of an example before I move on to the slides. So when we started this seminar, my bio was read as part of introducing me. So essentially, this is similar to what we do when we are writing, whether it's an essay or it's a thesis or it's an article. So from my bio, what key things do you remember about me? Anything that you remember from my bio?
I think if I'm not mistaken, it's the fact that you done some work in public health. I think I particularly was interested in that because my research does touch on to public health issues.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tumelo, for that. So for Tumelo, that's important to her because she has an interest in researches around public health, which means our introductions do not talk about everything, but they pick the key things. Like in this case, Tumelo is interested in researches around public health. So that's what immediately registered into her mind. So that's how an effective introduction should read like. So essentially, you are giving us a summary of the things that we expect to find when we read the whole article or the whole thesis. We don't expect to see everything, but things that will generate an appetite to read more. Is that clear? Good. I just thought I give this reflection before I move on to the slides. I think we can move now to the slides and see what kind of structured approach can we do and perhaps give some kind of practical examples. Next slide. Next slide. Good. So when you are writing an effective introduction, you are setting the tone for your entire thesis or dissertation. And I will provide a step-by-step approach to how we do it. Then we will round off with a practical sample of an introduction. Next slide. So the first step is to provide what we call a hook. Next slide. Or a broad statement. Here we are saying we need to grab the attention and we are introducing the topic in a broad context. This could be one, a relevant fact. It could be a statistic or a compelling anecdote. And this should set the stage for why the topic is important and engage your readers' interest. I want you to remember that all these slides are building towards perhaps 1 to 2 paragraphs only. Remember that all these slides that I'm going to talk about here, they are supposed to build into 1 to 2 paragraphs only. And when we say a hook or a broad statement, I've got an example here. I gave an example of youth unemployment and issues of entrepreneurship as a problem that we want to deal with. And one such example will be to start with that broad perspective where we say youth unemployment is a growing issue worldwide. We are starting from the macro level, which is the worldwide. And we are saying it's affecting millions and posing significant socio-economic challenges, particularly in the developing nations. So we are starting from global, but we are also zeroing down to developing nations. And perhaps from that developing nations, we can zero down to South Africa, we can zero down to Zimbabwe, we can, depending on your level or scope of your research. So this is how we start our introduction. Broad statement that is based on facts or statistics, or it's a compelling issue that everyone is talking about. Good. That's the first step. Next step. So this will make sense when I put everything together into one paragraph. The second step is to establish the research context. Where is this problem of unemployment happening? What is the context? What is the environment? So we are saying, let's provide a clearer background or a context for your research. Describe the issue or a problem your research addresses. Why is it significant? And what is the gap in the existing knowledge that your study aims to fill? So you are not just telling us the problem. What is your aim? What do you want to do with that problem? So you refer to key debates or theories that have shaped the research field. Great. An example would be, remember, I'm building from that same problem of youth unemployment in entrepreneurship. So your research context will be, while much has been written about youth unemployment, so you're acknowledging that the debate is ongoing, but there is limited attention which has been given to the role of entrepreneurship in alleviating unemployment in sub-Saharan Africa. So your context is zeroing down to sub-Saharan Africa. And you are telling us that current studies often overlook the barriers that recent graduates face when attempting to start businesses. So you are establishing your context about recent graduates, about other studies that have done similar work, and also in sub-Saharan Africa. So sometimes the studies are maybe in South America or in Asia or wherever. But for you, you are interested in sub-Saharan Africa. And you are saying the current studies, they are overlooking the barriers that recent graduates face. Perhaps it's just talking about entrepreneurship for people who have been in business or who have been working elsewhere. But what about for recent graduates? Next slide. You state the research problem. So bear in mind that the previous was on research context. Now you want to state the actual problem. Within that context, what is the problem? So you are defining the specific research problem you investigate. What question or issues are you trying to answer? And why does it matter? Why is the problem a problem for recent graduates? So it should be concise and clearly framed. And you must provide a focus for your study. So with problem definition, we are recasting our focus for the study so that we are not talking about everything else. And an example of a research problem would be, this research will examine. These are very important terms when you are casting your research problem. You are either examining, you are either exploring, you are assessing. All those terms, they are very important when you are structuring your research problem. So in this case, we are examining the barriers to entrepreneurship among university graduates. Here, I have picked Zimbabwe as an example, with a focus on the socio-economic, cultural, and policy-related obstacles that they encounter. So we know that your research is not talking about problems about entrepreneurship everywhere, or all the problems that entrepreneurs or recent graduates face with regard to entrepreneurship. But the focus here is on the socio-economic, on the cultural, and the police-related obstacles. So when we look at your research questions, your research objectives, we are already setting boundaries to say, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. We will not talk about everything. Otherwise, you won't, it's not possible to focus on everything, and you will be straying away from your key focus. So here, we are focusing on recent graduates in Zimbabwe, which is in Africa or in sub-Saharan Africa, and we are focusing on socio-economic and cultural and policy-related obstacles. These are the things that we are interested to check. Are we together? Next slide. Next slide. What is your research objective or aim? Bear in mind that the previous one was talking about research question. Now you have the question. The question that we have is, what do you want to do with that problem? You told us the problem. So what do you want to do? So in this case, you are outlining your objectives or aims, telling us what you hope to achieve or discover. So when you look at the socio-economic, cultural, policy-related challenges that recent graduates are facing in Zimbabwe, what do you want to achieve or discover? So it must directly relate to the research problem. An example there, the study aims to identify, listen to the language now. The research problem was examining or exploring, but with our objectives, the language slightly changes to identifying the key barriers. So you want to pick out the key barriers to entrepreneurship. We are not just looking at all barriers, just the key ones, which are faced by graduates or recent graduates. And you want to assess how these barriers impact their ability to create sustainable businesses. So this is the objective that we want to see. So when you structure your objectives, we want to see the identified key barriers to entrepreneurship by recent graduates. We want to see how you are assessing those barriers. So you are looking at the pros and cons, you are doing a SWOT analysis of those barriers and how they either hinder or facilitate a sustainable business environment. Next slide. Next slide. Next, yes. Then the significance of the study. Why does your study matter? These are all things that are coming within, remember that paragraph that I talked about. Before we even move into the whole article or whole thesis. So here by significance, we are explaining why your research is important. What contribution does it make to the field? How will it fill gaps in the current body of knowledge or address pressing issues in the real world? So when someone picks your introduction, they must tell right away whether your study is important. Is it something that is worth funding? Is it something that is worth pursuing? And that can only happen if you are contributing to new knowledge, if you are solving a problem, or you are improving the existing way of doing things or life. An example will be by identifying and analyzing the barriers to entrepreneurship. This study will provide valuable insights that could inform policies and initiatives aimed at reducing youth unemployment in Zimbabwe and similar contexts. So if it's your Minister of Labor or your COSATU or your bank who is listening to this, proposal, they'll say, okay, this sounds interesting because unemployment is a problem in contexts like South Africa or any other African country. So they will say, okay, this sounds interesting, and it develops the appetite to continue reading the article. Remember that the articles that we do, apart from just serving our academic purposes, there are some entrepreneurs out there who are looking for these articles to make money out of these ideas. So we are not just publishing for, achieving certain, positions. We are contributing to solving real problems out there. So policymakers will be interested, entrepreneurs will be interested in your papers or in your studies. Next slide. Next slide. Research methods. Here we are just providing a very brief overview. We are not getting into details. Remember, this is an introduction. That's one paragraph or 2 paragraphs. So you briefly mention the approach you will use to conduct your research in that one paragraph, especially if it's a distinctive or innovative method. When you want to provide more details, you do that in your methodology section. But here is just a quick preview that can help orient your reader to say, how was this, or how is this study going to be done? Then example, you say a qualitative approach utilizing in-depth interviews with university graduates will be employed to gather detailed insights into their entrepreneurial experiences and challenges. So you summarize that in less than 3 sentences. It's part of your 1 paragraph. So we know you use a qualitative, not a quantitative approach. We know you are not going to use case studies, but you are going to use in-depth interviews. And you are not going to interview everybody, but university graduates. So you are marking your boundaries here in terms of the method that you are going to be using. Next slide. Then the thesis statement now. This comes at the end of your introduction. That's 1 paragraph. And it must have a clear research question or a thesis statement. This is the central focus of your research and should be framed precisely. When we say you are doing a thesis, we look at this to say, what is the key questions that you seek to answer? So in terms of the actual writing, you can say, this is study 6 to answer the question, what are the key barriers to entrepreneurship among university graduates in Zimbabwe? and how do these barriers influence their entrepreneurial intentions? That becomes your thesis statement. So there are two important things. What are the key barriers to entrepreneurship among university graduates? And the second part, how do these barriers influence their entrepreneurial intentions? This, when you write like this, you are guaranteed that someone can develop the appetite to read through your whole thesis or your whole article. So in short, this is how you structure your introduction. Remember, this is just one paragraph or 1.5 or 2. Next slide. Next slide. Now, putting things together now. I am combining all the things that we discussed into this one paragraph. Anyone who wants to read this for me? Any volunteer who can read this introduction example? Colleagues, any volunteer so that it becomes participatory? Usually when you practice things, that's the beginning of better things.
Okay, Sibongiseni has volunteered.
Great,
Yes,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, let me just read. Youth unemployment is a growing issue worldwide, affecting millions and posing significant socioeconomic challenges, particularly in developing nations. While much has been written about youth unemployment, limited attention has been given to the role of entrepreneurship in alleviating unemployment in sub-Saharan Africa. Current studies often overlook the barriers that recent graduates face when attempting to start businesses. This research will examine the barriers to entrepreneurship among university graduates in Zimbabwe, with a focus on the socio-economic, cultural, and policy-related obstacles they encounter. The study aims to identify the key barriers to entrepreneurship faced by graduates and assess how these barriers impact their ability to create sustainable businesses. By identifying and analyzing the barriers to entrepreneurship, this study will provide valuable insights that could inform policies and initiatives aimed at reducing youth unemployment in Zimbabwe and similar contexts. A qualitative approach utilizing in-depth interviews with university graduates will be employed to gather detailed insight into their entrepreneurial experiences and challenges. This study seeks to answer the question, what are the key barriers to entrepreneurship among university graduates in Zimbabwe? And how do these barriers influence their entrepreneurial intentions? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sibongiseni. Great. What do you think about this introduction? Any reflections from the floor? Let's move. We have 1 minute to go, and we still have another presentation. All right, maybe in the interest of time, you'll notice that this one paragraph is managed to synthesize all the slides that we were talking about into just one paragraph. And you have a clear idea in terms of what is research problem, what is the research environment, what is the broad or worldwide view about entrepreneurship challenges globally, zeroing down to, in this case, Zimbabwe. So I want to let you know that getting to this level of writing comes with practice. You need to practice writing. And some days are very bad. You can barely write a paragraph, but keep writing. We know that with these technologies, the ChatGPT and stuff, sometimes it can work against us. So we need to be able to conceptualize and express our ideas the way we want them consumed by our audience. So those tools can only help us to shape things that we already have, or things that we have already conceptualized. So writing, I want to encourage you, colleagues, to keep writing. Keep trying. You will not succeed on the first attempt, but when you keep writing, you begin to see yourself behaving like ChatGPT itself. So let's develop that habit of trying. If you put your ideas first, then you connect them the way we did in a structured manner like this, you won't miss out on the important things. So here you can actually identify all the key steps that we discussed here. I did not do it here, but you see, when we do the abstract, I have tried to identify key things that, or key elements that you are supposed to pay attention. For example, when you are writing an abstract. For this one, you can identify it for yourself. It's part of your homework. Identify which one is the thesis statement, which one is the research problem. It's clear. You can see it there. Next slide. So I'm winding up on this one. Any questions and reactions? Caroline, I'm sure you are 50% answered. Then the other 50% will come when I discuss the abstract. If not,
Caroline will confirm that. Okay. Yes, there's also a comment again from Caroline. I think it was in relation to the text that was displayed now. And then she said it's eye-catching, it's detailed, and it's concise.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Okay, colleagues, do we have any questions regarding the introduction? Any comments, any questions?
Great. So if there are no, we can move on to
Please confirm if the presentation is showing.
I'll try to move fast without compromising the conversations, But I know there are some who are very good at managing time who might have some other engagements, so try to balance the two. So the next presentation is going to talk about how to write effective abstracts for postgraduate studies. I did this deliberately, you know, after your literature review, and you have an idea of how to write a summary or an introduction, which is pretty similar in a way to an abstract, then we can safely discuss an abstract separately, since it's an important part of our journey for various reasons. Next slide. Next slide.
I think there's a bit of a lag when I'm changing from my side, so it changes, it reflects
so?
rather after a while from your side. Yes.
Yeah, it's because of, I think it's technological issues, but it hasn't changed yet.
Is it still on the title slide?
My side is on presentation outline.
Still on the.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm the only one who sees that.
It's one. Sorry.
Presentation outline.
Yes. Yeah. Good. So I will just briefly look at the introduction. What is an abstract? Why is it important? Of course, I gave an example of social sciences, but we have other colleagues from other departments. What makes social science abstract unique? Structure of abstracts. What to include? We will look at the key 5 elements and the tips on how to write, the do's and don'ts. What are the common mistakes? We'll also have an opportunity to look at a good versus a poor one, and a sample of a good abstract that we'll discuss. Then we have a quick checklist, then some tools and resources, then some final thoughts. Next slide. Good. So by abstract, here we are looking at a concise summary of the key elements of a research paper or article. This is essentially what an abstract is about, a concise summary of the key elements of a research paper or article. This is usually 150 to 250, but it depends on who is coding for the abstract. They will tell you how many words that they want, but the idea is it should not be too long, since it provides just an overview. And this is like at the beginning of the document, giving an overview of what to expect in the whole paper. Next slide. Why is it important? So an abstract summarizes your argument, your methods, and findings clearly. In short, it's your readers to decide whether to read your full paper. Like what we discussed in the literature review there. You use the abstract of the articles to decide whether you should read the full paper or not. It reflects both theoretical and practical relevance. So sometimes you are interested in looking at the theoretical and also implications for policy and practice. It's also used to assess fit for journals or conferences or for funding. So when someone who is very busy looks at your abstract, maybe is flying from Joburg to Cape Town, they must be able to tell whether this project is fundable or not by just reading your abstract, perhaps in 5 to 7 minutes or less. It's also often used for indexing in databases and conference selections. Next slide. What makes your abstract unique? You must focus on context, theory, and critical analysis. Reflections back from our literature review. You may also blend qualitative and quantitative methods for social sciences. And with social sciences, mostly it's emphasis on social impact, human behavior, or policy relevance. Next slide. Let's look at the structure. Here, I am just giving you a broader summary in 3 ways. The first, you look at the introduction or the context, where we are looking at the social issue or a gap to be addressed. That's the first part. Then the second part looks at the aims or a research question. We are asking what is the central question or objective of that study or that article. Then the final part is the approach or methods. It could be a case study, it could be interviews, it could be discourse analysis. You can use different methods here. So in summary, these are the 3 key features that define a good abstract. But I'll go further to then provide some bit of descriptions in terms of the actual structure, which is on the next slide. Next slide. Good. So that one we're looking at just the broader structure. Now, I want to discuss the key elements now. There are 5 key elements. The first, which is the background or context. Here you are briefly explaining the topic and why it matters. Very briefly. Similar to what we did with the structure of an introduction. Then we are saying, what are the research questions or objectives? So here you are stating the main questions or aim of the study. What are the methods? You are describing how the research was conducted, e.g. surveys, interviews, or case studies. Then the results. What are the key results? What are the main findings? Here you are not providing too much detail. You are just highlighting the key. The same way we did with the introductory summary. Then conclusions, implications, just the same way we do with the thesis statement. You are summarizing what the results mean for the field. If it's education, if it's law, if it's engineering, what does the findings imply or mean for the field, and also in terms of policy or practice. So these are the key generic elements that we expect to see in an abstract. There may be slight variations here and there, depending on what whoever is calling requires, but this is the generic elements that we see in an abstract. Next slide. Next slide. Then in terms of the tips, here we really need to pay attention to the language. We don't use technical language. Your abstract must be understood by perhaps the least educated person in your audience. So we are supposed to break down our jargon to mean what it means in simple terms. You need to be very specific where you are highlighting the unique angle or theoretical contribution. Right away, we want to know how is your work going to contribute to new knowledge, to solving problems. And you must ensure that it stands out without needing to read the full paper. So just reading the abstract must give a complete picture of what the paper sought to do without requiring you to read the whole paper. So this is very important, especially for people without a lot of time. They just want to scan through so that they can make quick decisions, whether they continue or not continue. Next slide. All right, what are the do's and don'ts? So you have the green light to align your abstract with the paper's tone and content. So the language that is in the paper, which is simple and understandable, must be reflected in the abstract. That applies again to the content as well. And we are using a past tense for research summaries, which is the third person. In terms of don'ts, we must avoid writing our abstract before the full paper. This is very important. When we say abstract, we are picking from the research that we have done. That's how you can write a concise and meaningful abstract. When you finish your thesis, when you are now submitting or showing intention to submit, that's where you put all things together. And they want this even for your the thing that they put in your graduation, in that book. It's your abstract that they put there, so that whoever is reading about you is a complete picture of what you did with your thesis. So it comes at the end as a rule of thumb. Don't include detailed literature review or references in your abstract. And we don't use vague terms. For example, when you say important findings without elaborating or without giving examples. So these are some of the quick don'ts that we should pay attention to. Next slide. Similar to what we have just discussed, the common mistakes, overloading with theory, and you underplay your findings. That becomes a problem. Remember, your findings, because they are yours, we become very much interested rather than dwelling much on theories that other people have crafted. So we must avoid that. And we must ensure that we clearly state the methodology for research questions. Otherwise, it will be difficult. Then too much background is also similar to overloading with the theory. So remember, an abstract is not exactly like a mini introduction. There's a slight difference there. So we are not giving too much background as we did with the introduction. So here we must focus on the key things, particularly the things that speaks to your work, rather than a background that exists out there, or some theory that was designed or crafted by someone out there. But here we are interested to know what method did you use, what were the research questions, what were the key findings. Next slide. Good. So what are the ingredients of a good abstract? I am reflecting on what we have already discussed. There must be a problem. Back to our example about youth unemployment in entrepreneurship challenges in Zimbabwe. The problem is rising youth unemployment. What is the aim? You want to explore barriers to entrepreneurship amongst graduates. What is the method? It was a qualitative interview with 30 participants. What were the findings? Lack of capital, policy gaps, and social pressure. You see why you should write your abstract after the paper. You have the findings now. So if you try to be creative and write before you write the full paper, I don't know where you get the findings. Then conclusion. The conclusion here is need for targeted support and policy reform. So if someone is a policymaker, a minister somewhere there, they already have an idea of what this research is all about. Even before I expand it the way I will do next. So these are the ingredients that will give you a very good dish that you can enjoy, or that your readers can enjoy when prepared, professional. Next slide. So we are still on the example of a good abstract. I'm building the abstract now. Next. Good. Here's the dish now. Here I've put together the ideas. So we want to see where the problem is. We want to see where the aim is. We want to see the methods. We want to see the key findings. We want to see the conclusion. Any volunteer to read this for us? This abstract? Any volunteer? So that it becomes a
I see.
participatory.
I see Michael's mic is unmuted. I'm not sure if he wants to read. Michael? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Anyone who would volunteer to read? Tsepiso, you may go ahead.
The dish. Youth unemployment remains a critical socio-economic challenge in Zimbabwe, particularly amongst university graduates. This study explores the barriers to entrepreneurship as a potential solution to the crisis. Using a qualitative research approach, in-depth interviews were conducted with 30 recent graduates to gain insights into their experiences and perceptions. The findings reveal several key obstacles to entrepreneurial engagement, including limited access to startup capital, inadequate policy support, and societal expectations that favor formal employment over self-employment. These challenges hinder the ability of young people to pursue entrepreneurship as a viable career path. The study concludes that targeted support mechanisms, along with comprehensive policy reforms, are essential to empower graduates and stimulate youth-led enterprise development in Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Tsepiso, for the wonderful reading. So you can see from this abstract that the problem is there, the aim is there, the method is there, the key findings are there, and their conclusion is there. So this is how a good abstract must look like. This is between 150 to 250 when, and we have a clear idea of the problem, what we want to do, what methods we use, and the key findings and conclusions. Great. Next slide. I'm actually winding up my presentation now. Good. So this is also another good practice to do a quick peer review or revision with your colleagues before you submit it. So you get feedback from your supervisor or from your colleagues. You also need to ask, does it answer what, why, and how? Questions, what was found, so what? So if you reflect back on that abstract, it answers this question. You may need to revise multiple times for clarity. Sometimes if you write or do something over and over, you end up reading things that are not there because it's your work and you think you have written what you want to write there, but it's not there. So another eye can help to pick up that. Next slide. I'm winding up. Good. Quick checklist. Is the research question clear? In this case, research question and purpose, is it clear? Is it your theoretical framework and methods, are they concise? Did you include your key findings? Did you also include contribution to the field? Action points, like your thesis statement. What key takeaways do we have from your abstract? Great. I'm sure we are entering into the zone of questions and reflections or reactions. Good. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grant, for that presentation. We've really learned a lot today, from the introduction to the abstract to the literature review. Thank you, and your presentations are very detailed, and I think we are going to share the slides with the attendees, and as we are busy writing, and then we can reflect, we can just go back to the slides and then go through them again just to make sure if we're on the right track. So thank you for that. I will definitely refer to the slides. And again, I had a question also on the abstract, and I saw as the presentation went along, you actually addressed that question, and that question was based on the references, that should we actually include the references in the abstract? And your response was no, we should not include the references. The second question that I have is based on the implications. Is it important to include the implications of the study in the abstract?
Yes. If you look at, you can go back to, so implications are like your thesis statement or action points that we are picking from the research. You can go back to that example that we have given. So in terms of terminology, we are simply saying, what are the contributions to practice or to policy does the research findings bring on the table? You get that?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So in a way, we are talking about implications. Sometimes we may not use that word, implications, but essentially that's what we are talking about.
Okay, noted.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions for Dr. Grant? I see we are over time right now, so I'll just give the last round of questions. If you do have questions, and on the chat box, and maybe Caroline can also confirm if her question was actually addressed. And I'll just open this time for the questions and the comments before we can conclude our session. Okay, we got a confirmation from Caroline, and she said, she says yes, I'm 100% satisfied with the presentation. Thank you for that. And in the absence of questions and comments, I would then close the session. Just a final reminder, I'm going to post the feedback survey for the last time on the chat. Please, can you complete the survey before you leave the session? And let me just take this opportunity to thank you, the attendees, for actually joining us on this session today. I know everybody's just looking forward to the long weekend, and they just wanna go and have a restful weekend. So thank you for taking your time to join us today, and also to our presenter, Dr. Grant. I thank you for actually accepting our invitation and preparing and giving this presentation. We really appreciate it, and we have definitely learned a lot from you today. Thank you very much. And if there are no more questions and if there are no more comments, I will then close the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Grant.
Thank you so much for wonderful moderation, and thank you all the colleagues who took time to listen to my presentation. I look forward to further engagements when I'm on campus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Caroline, I will post the consultation booking on the chat. I would please look out for the link. I will do that. Thank you. And Thank you, everyone, and have a great day further.
Thank you.